What is going on, everyone, and welcome to this video. My name is Hayden Davison. You're watching FBA TV. In this video, I want to talk about everything to do with Amazon virtual assistants, because I think it's a topic that's probably not covered enough. There's a lot of people selling virtual assistants, etc. But I think it's actually probably an easier process than a lot of people think to actually get one, hire one, etc., and take them onto your team. So I wanted to talk about exactly the specifics around hiring Amazon virtual assistants, everything that you need to know. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics of actually how to hire them, because I did that about 8 videos back. Go back and look at that if you haven't already. What I'm going to talk about here is sort of the types of virtual assistants and when the right time to hire one could be for you and your business. Okay, so let's dive into it. So there's a few different virtual assistants that you could have. Okay, so you've got like sourcing virtual assistants, which tends to be the first one that a business gets. You've got purchasing managers, you've got admin VAs, and you've got also just general business managers that are sort of really high level and should probably demand quite a higher salary. So let me talk about what I think is a good way to start. Now, if you're doing things like online arbitrage, okay, and retail arbitrage and stuff like that, the main thing you're going to need is a sourcing virtual assistant. They're mainly for online arbitrage, and that's what I started with, a sourcing assistant. Now, I've actually got a VA pool of multiple sourcing virtual assistants at the moment for our USA side of the arbitrage business, okay? I've actually got a few at the moment. I've also got an admin VA who does all of my administration tasks, and I've also just hired a new one with someone else for a purchasing manager VA. So, but I remember when I started, I thought it was scary, the idea of having to commit to this certain outgoing to these new VAs once a month. So I completely understand where you're coming from if you're worried about that at the moment, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. So the right time to hire a virtual assistant is definitely when your business is producing enough output. Okay, and the input that you're putting is no longer meeting the growth that is required by your business. So in layman terms, let me give you an example of that. What I mean is, if you are sourcing a lot, and you're actually making good profit on all your items or acceptable profit, you've scaled it to a certain amount, and the only difference between you going from here, say 20k a month to 40k a month, is just buying more deals, finding more deals, I should have said, then you know, as long as you can afford it and you've sort of tested it, you know, you've tested that potential outcome of a few £100s a month that could be of a sourcing VA, then it's definitely time to jump to that next level. It's never going to be an easy thing to do. It's always going to be a little bit scary, okay, to actually hire that virtual assistant. But if it's the right time for you, then you've got to dive into it. Now, it might not be a sourcing virtual assistant that you require, but if you are doing something like online arbitrage or wholesale, most likely it is a sourcing VA that you need. Most likely it's a sourcing VA that you need if you have jumped to that level. But if you're doing something like unique bundles, if you're doing something like private label, then it might mean that you need an admin VA to manage your administration so that you yourself can actually focus on creating more products and launching more products. So it really does depend on what business model that you are doing, depending on the VAs that you get. Now, in terms of hiring your VAs, okay, what you need to do before you hire a VA, in my opinion, is actually come up with a really good structure. You need a really good structure for your VAs. You don't want them to come into a really confusing, overwhelming setup where you haven't got the correct spreadsheets in place, the procedures in place, a time scale for them. Hey guys, just a really quick note here, just to say that Awesome is sponsoring this podcast. It's not even a podcast; it's a YouTube channel. They're sponsoring this YouTube channel, and below there's 2 links. One of them gives you 2 months free accounting, and I've been using them for ages and ages and ages. Awesome service. Pardon the pun. Or the other link down there is just £12, and they will set up a limited company for you and a business bank account. So yeah, I've been using Awesome for a long time, and I would recommend them. Anyway, let's get back to the video. You need to create and come up with every little task that you do that you want them to do. And a really good way to do this is actually by post-it notes. So I got taught this by a friend of mine, Susan, who owns Free Peas Fulfillment Centre. And what she told me to do was write down every task that I was doing that I wanted to outsource, and then actually get the VAs to do that. And then once I've got it written on all these post-it notes, which I posted around my place, I sort of started implementing that into systems, spreadsheets, creating spreadsheets for them so that they had like a user manual, if you like a SOPs as soon as they came in, standard operating procedure, if you don't know what that is. So that's what you need to do. You need to get organized. It's going to be overwhelming to start with, but you've got to understand the long-term goal. In terms of hiring these virtual assistants, go back and watch my other video. Talked about a good friend of mine, Ahmed, who's actually giving them away for free, so you don't have to spend money on them. But if you do want to hire one from onlinejobs.ph, which is where I actually got my first one from, then also go back and look at that video. So I hope that video helped as like an all-round understanding of virtual assistants, because they're not as overwhelming as you think they are, and it's not as scary once you start it. It's like anything, you've just got to get started, and once you've got started, then you know you're going to be absolutely fine, as long as you've figured out, for example, can your business manage that extra outgoing? Make sure you're putting that for a couple of months, 2-3 months, as an outgoing that would have come out if you had the VA. Make sure the business can afford it. If the only extra input that you need into the business is someone that is doing sourcing for you or doing your administration so that you can focus on creating products, depending on what business model you do, then it's totally essential that you catapult yourself to that next level if you want to grow the business. Otherwise, you're really going to just stay at this sort of low level business, in terms of the output that your business can achieve if it's just you doing everything. So I hope that video's helped. That's sort of a 101 on virtual assistants for Amazon. I will see you in the next video. You've been watching FBA TV. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that fancy cool stuff, and I hope you like the new microphone, lighting and camera I've got. I'll see you in the next video.